It's like I was in disbelief. I went numb. They were like, we don't know why you're so young with this massive tumor. And I was just, disbelief, like how could me, like I was just finally getting my life healthy. I'm JJ Singleton. I'm from a small town in western North Carolina. I usually just say I'm from near Asheville because everybody's heard of Asheville. Nobody's heard of Canton, North Carolina, which is a town of about 3,000 people. Grew up in a community of about 1,000 people. So very small town, country oriented. I was a huge sports person. Grew up playing basketball, football, ran track. Played college football for 2 years before too many concussions made me quit. I'm a huge nerd, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all that. I associate falling in love with it as something that helped save my life, like allow me to escape the whole cancer thing. Like even got a tattoo of it, like a phrase, never tell me the odds. It was around 2015. A little bit before that, like after I got hurt playing football that was like 2008, I just let myself go. I started, eating a lot, quit working out because I lived in the gym while I was playing and getting athletic. Drank way too much in college. So I was at 315 pounds at the beginning of 2015, and I decided to get healthy again. So started going to CrossFit with one of my old football coaches, eating healthy, and started losing weight. But around Memorial Day of that year was the first time I felt a throbbing in my abdomen. And me, typical, stubborn male, was like, I pulled a muscle because I was doing 2-a-day workouts, getting ready for a competition in August. But through that summer, the pain would come and go. It would get worse. I was starting to have issues using the bathroom. And I did the competition on August 1st. And after that, my body crashed. Like I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink without like becoming violently sick to my stomach. I was losing about 5 pounds a week at that time because I just wasn't able to eat. I was dehydrated every day. And finally, my mom made me go to the doctor because I was still stubborn and was like, I'll be okay. I would lay in bed and look at my symptoms, and at the bottom was always colon cancer or cancer. And I was just like, that can't be me. And then my mom made me go to the doctor. And by that point, I could put my shirt up against my stomach and you could see the tumor throb through the skin. When she made me or told me I was going to the doctor, I knew I looked bad. And they as soon as the doctor looked at that, he was like, you got to go get a scan right now. And that's kind of where it all started. It was from Memorial Day. So the very, May to September 4th, because September 4th is when I went to the doctor and went to the scan. And they said there was a mass. And then as soon as he said that back in the doctor's office, all the dots connected from the last few months of what I was dealing with. And before I even had to go get a colonoscopy a few days later, because it was Labor Day weekend, I knew it was cancer. It was just a feeling that like it all made sense why I was going to bed at 7 o'clock when I was dead tired, why I was having so much pain and not using the bathroom and losing weight and just everything that I'd been going through that had come up with some excuse for in my head because, like I grew up in a culture where we didn't go to the doctor. Like I'd been to the doctor, to get sports physicals. And then when I broke a finger in middle school, and other than that, I never really went to the doctor for anything because it just wasn't something, we did. By the time that day ended, I'd already had this colonoscopy scheduled for the Tuesday when everybody started back to work after Labor Day. So I got to drink the prep on Labor Day there. And usually that's one of my weekends I look forward to in the year the most because it's an opening weekend of college football. And I didn't watch one single game. I was in so much pain. And just in my head, I was like, I'd already told my family, and people that I knew what it was. So going through that and just, feeling like, how could I have cancer at 27 years old? I thought this was something my grandpa's age was supposed to have. And then, that Tuesday happened. It was colonoscopy, meet with the surgeon the next day, and within a few days, I was in the hospital for surgery. Yeah, because it was about 95% blocked. My colon was about 95% blocked. They said they had, I was the youngest person that they had seen in a long time, just because we're such a small, area and stuff. And they were like, we don't know why you're so young with this massive tumor. And then they're like, you should have came in months ago because, as soon as you felt the pain. And I was like, well, now I know that. But back then I wasn't thinking I ever needed a doctor. And then they were like, this has probably been growing in your colon for years to get to this big. And I was just, disbelief, like how could me, like I was just finally getting my life healthy. Like I could say, 4 years ago when I was drinking way too much every single day and eating horrible, I was like, oh, that could have made sense. But I was like, I'm getting healthy now. And before this popped up, I was feeling better than I had in a decade. Very badly at first. Like I was in disbelief. I went numb. And even when I was going to tell my grandparents and my dad and stuff, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, this is it. And I don't know what's going to go on. And then as the days went by, I went into that like kind of sports mindset I've had my whole life. Like, okay, this is what they're telling me I'm going to do. Surgery, recover, 12 rounds of chemo, and then hopefully you'll be done. So I like had a game plan. I was just like, I'm going to put my head down, put the blinders on, and get through it, and then get my life back was like the game plan for me then. So I know looking back now, that probably wasn't the healthiest thing because I was like, I can shoulder it all. I don't need help. I just, my family was there to help me, to take me to chemo and be there at the hospital. But I was like, I'm going to get through it. This is going to be a very small chapter in my life, and I'm going to go back to being who I am. I realized quick after a while in the doctor's offices, I would just go like numb. I'm like, tell me what I'm doing, and then y'all can talk about the, questions. But I would research, and then I realized quick that I was embarrassed by it because, like I never liked talking about my bowel movements or what was going on with my colon or anything like that. And I realized a lot of people are like that, and that's been one of the things too about breaking the stigma against colorectal cancer because you hear people all the time have no issues talking about leukemias or breast cancer and stuff, but people don't want to ask you about your bowel movements. I mean, my family has always been supportive. They were like, you can talk to us about anything, but still it's like they didn't really understand it because they've never been through it. And at that time, I had no idea there were so many like organizations and supports out there. And like I said, I had the blinders on. I wasn't going to ask for help. I was just like, I'm doing this. So my ignorance led me not to search for like message boards and organizations at that time, and tried to shoulder it all myself. After I had the surgery, and I ended up being in the hospital for 16 days because my body did not like to heal right. They had to go back in for a second surgery to make sure there was no leakage because I had bile that was just building up in my abdomen. So that was the first sign that my body did not like surgeries in hospitals, because I've been in there way too much. But after that, they were like, you were so young. We want you to go to Duke just to see why you have this cancer, because there was no real family history of it. And then, so I went to Duke. They got me genetic tested. I have Lynch syndrome, which is the reason I got cancer so young. And the reason we didn't know anything about it is because we had such a sketchy family history in parts, because my dad's side of the family, they didn't go to doctors at all. My grandma had some brothers that died early. And then on my mom's side, my grandma, she didn't really know much of her family history just because, back then they moved and, there was no records of it. So like somewhere down the line, it came through and it just decided to pop up in you. 15, 20 years ago, if anybody in the family died, they weren't getting no autopsy or anything done. They were just, put them in the coffin, burying them and stuff, and that was it, just there. So I had no idea, and genetics came so far, but I never even heard of, other than on TV, anything about genetics or genetic testing, and never had heard of Lynch syndrome. After I got out around the beginning of October. They were like, take 6 weeks to kind of heal. That's when I went to Duke, got the genetic testing. And then my oncologist in Asheville was really good friends with my one in Duke. So they kind of worked together as a team, allowed me to do all my treatments, 30 minutes away in Asheville instead of 5 hours away in Durham. So they came up with the plan, they thought they had all the cancer out from the surgery. Let's just go through the 12 rounds of Folfox, which is, the normal first line defense of, colon cancer. So we started that in November of 2015. And I was like, okay, it's going to feel like a bad hangover. I went through 5 or almost 6 years of college. I know what that feels like. Was totally wrong. Went in there that first time and it knocked me for a loop. I was not expecting that kind of feeling. I had horrible nausea there. Within 30 minutes of getting the drugs in there, I could start feeling my stomach do flips. Had diarrhea constantly. Had no appetite. I had to force myself to eat a little bit or drink. And then with Folfox, it has a cold sensitivity, so you can't drink anything cold other than lukewarm temperatures, which I hated. So it was a chore to drink, room temperature water for 3 or 4 days. And then with me, I've had horrible mouth sores since the very beginning. So that was one of the things that has impacted me to this day. It started by just having it almost felt like fever blisters on my lips. And then as the days went by, I would feel sores on my gum lines. And then my tongue would lose all its taste buds and feel raw. And then I would feel like I have strep throat with sores down my throat. And it's I couldn't eat anything other than soft foods. And I'd been so used to that with eating after my surgery. I was so sick of it. And it was hard to get, the proteins and the nutrients you needed to help your body recover. And it just started a long journey of really not enjoying eating. They gave me some medicine to help with the neuropathy, and it kind of seemed to help a little bit. I still have neuropathy to this day. The nausea medicine, I started taking the pre-nausea meds the night before and kept it every 6 and 8 hours through 3 days, even if I wasn't sick at the beginning, just to stay ahead of it. And then I started doing the edibles to help with the nausea there. That was one of the few things that allowed me to be hungry and help with the nausea, because I was losing weight at first. And those were really the things that kind of helped. 6 months, 12 rounds of that. So I finished around mid-April of 2016, and my scan was good right after that. I had a colonoscopy a couple of weeks later. It was clean. So I was, took a little vacation, started back to work at the beginning of May, and about 2 weeks later, so it was about 6 weeks from the last chemo, woke up, felt the throbbing in my abdomen again. And this time I was at the doctor's at 6:30 waiting on him to, my surgeon, waiting on him to pull in, because I was I'm not waiting again. And that kind of started the next couple of weeks of every kind of scan, biopsy, a trip to Duke. And we learned that the cancer came back, but it wasn't my colon this time. It spread to my abdominal wall and lymph nodes throughout my body.